Welcome to this explainer where we're going to unlock what I like to call a total secret superpower. We're looking at the superpower of getting massive, unique things done without everything just completely falling apart. You know, whether you're building a giant bridge, designing a brand new video game, or putting together a huge school event, there's actually a hidden science to pulling it off, and it's called project management. So, have you ever tried to rush through building a really massive Lego set, or maybe putting together a backyard treehouse, only to watch the whole thing collapse halfway through? It is incredibly frustrating, right? You put in all that hard work, and bam, you gotta start all over again. Well, believe it or not, grown-ups do this all the time in the real world. Projects fail, they completely blow past their budgets, or they miss their deadlines constantly. And experts tell us exactly why this happens. It boils down to a super common mistake called the ready, fire, aim approach. I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. People get so excited, or maybe they just feel really rushed, that they start working super fast before they actually figure out what their target even is. It's kind of like trying to shoot an arrow while wearing a blindfold and just hoping you hit the bullseye. It leads to a massive amount of wasted time and what experts call rework, which is basically a fancy way of saying you have to do the exact same job twice because you messed it up the first time. All right, Section 1, what is a project? Okay, so before we can fix these mistakes, we really need to define what a project actually is. It isn't a normal chore you do every single day, like washing the dishes or making your bed. It's a one-time event. There's a quality expert named Dr. J.M. Duran, and he perfectly described a project as a problem scheduled for a solution. It has a really clear beginning and a very clear end. You're fixing something or building something completely unique, and once it's done, the project is over. Moving right along to Section 2, the rules of the game. Right, so now that we know what a project is, we have to learn how to play the game. Because every game has rules, and managing a project, well, it's the ultimate balancing act. Think of a triangle. In geometry, if you know the lengths of the sides of a triangle, you can easily figure out the area inside. In project management, this triangle shows how the different rules and limits of our project are literally glued to each other. If you change one single side, you absolutely have to change the others to keep the whole triangle intact. Let's break down these rules you have to balance. They're called the PCTS targets. P stands for performance, which is basically how good the final result actually is. C is for cost. That's your budget or how much money you can spend. T is for time, meaning your strict deadline. And finally, S, right there in the middle, is scope, which is the overall size of the job. Now, what's really fascinating about this balancing act is the magic number 3. There's a very practical rule here. The boss, or whoever's paying for the project, can only pick 3 of these targets. For example, they can demand that the project is cheap, fast, and huge. But if they lock in those 3 sides of our triangle, the project team gets to figure out the 4th. You just simply cannot have it all. I mean, if you want a giant treehouse built by tomorrow for $0, the performance is going to be pretty terrible. Section 3, the project manager's real job. So who is the person making sure we actually win this tricky balancing game? That's the project manager. But here's a giant trap that people fall into all the time. People often try to be a working project manager. This means they try to do the hands-on building, like swinging the actual hammer or typing up the computer code, while also trying to manage the entire project at the exact same time. Experts tell us this is a recipe for disaster. When push comes to shove, the hands-on work always takes priority, and the managing, it just gets completely ignored. You literally cannot do both well. The true role of the project manager isn't to do the technical work at all. Actually, your job is to be a helper and a shield. A project manager is an enabler, which is really just a fancy word for a helper. That means your whole job is to clear obstacles right out of the way, go get the specific tools the team needs, and block out any outside distractions so your team has exactly what they need to win. You aren't the star player scoring the goals. You're the coach making sure the team has a totally clear field to play on. Okay, Section 4. Leaders versus dictators. To be a great helper and coach for your team, you're going to need a special kind of power. Why? Because project managers usually don't have a ton of bossy authority. You have to use leadership. As Vance Packard famously said, leadership is the art of getting others to want to do something that you believe should be done. A dictator just forces people to work using fear, right? But a true leader inspires people to actually want to do the work. It's all about your people skills. The biggest test of this superpower happens when you turn your back. Think about it. If a dictator turns around, everyone immediately stops working because they're only doing it out of fear. But when a true leader turns their back, the team just keeps going. They keep working hard because they actually believe in the mission and they genuinely want the project to succeed. Finally, Section 5, the power of a plan. All right, so we know we need to be a great leader, not a dictator. But what's the ultimate tool a leader uses to guide their team safely to the finish line? It's a plan, and a good plan follows a really clear path. First, initiating, where you officially start the idea and agree on the mission. Second, planning, where you create your map. Third, executing, which is finally doing the actual work. Fourth, monitoring, where you constantly check to make sure you're still on the right path. And finally, closing, where you finish everything up and learn from what you just did. Now listen closely, because here is the golden rule of project management. If there is only one single thing you remember from this entire explainer, make it this. The people who actually have to do the hands-on work absolutely must be the ones who help create the plan. You cannot just lock yourself in a room, draw up a plan all by yourself, and hand it to the workers. If you do that, the plan's going to be full of mistakes, and the team honestly won't care about it. They have to help build the map. But wait, you might be thinking, what if we're in a huge hurry? People complain all of the time that planning is just a waste of time, but trying to skip the plan to save time is exactly like refusing to look at a map because you're late for a meeting in a brand new city. You are not going to get there faster. You're just going to get completely lost, and you'll end up failing much more efficiently. When the deadline is super tight, the plan is actually more important than ever. And a great plan doesn't have to be super confusing. It's actually quite simple. It really just needs a few basic ingredients: a clear mission statement of what you're doing, a list of deliverables, which is just a fancy word for the final products you're actually making, a schedule of when things are due, a list of resources like the tools and people you need, and finally, a backup plan. You always need a plan B, just in case plan A hits a roadblock. Because here is the honest truth. Things will always go wrong. Unexpected obstacles are absolutely going to pop up. The best plans are flexible. Just like the quote says, any plan is bad which is not susceptible to change. In simple terms, if your plan can't bend, it's gonna break. When surprise problems happen, a good manager doesn't panic. They just change the plan in a calm, orderly way and keep the entire team moving forward. So we've covered the rules of the triangle, the total danger of the ready, fire, aim mistake, and the golden rule of planning. The next time you're faced with a massive, unique task, ask yourself this. Are you just going to rush in blindfolded, or will you use this superpower to plan properly, shield your team, and lead them to an awesome victory? The choice is totally yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope you feel completely ready to tackle your next big project.